Thanks everybody for bearing with me. It's a short lecture here today, but yeah, I guess I'm so busy trying to do multiple things that I messed up somehow. Never did happen before. So thanks for sticking it out. I got a few minutes to talk about the history of hemp. The history of the cannabis plant, like much of our earlier history, is based as much on speculation at times as fact. And there hasn't been a lot of study, in my opinion certainly, into the history of cannabis, that not near what should be done. I have one of those books here, I should bring it up. My friend Chris Bennett has done more work studying the history of this plant than anyone. Oh no. Should have his book, Cannabis and Soma Solution, here, but I'm a bit scattered. Anyway, cannabis, many people think, was the first agricultural crop 10,000 years ago. And for many of us today that see all the various uses of it, that might seem logical, but I think I want to spend some time speculating about why it was 10,000 years ago we worked so damn hard to try and actually cultivate the plant. Before that time, nature, for the most part, would have looked after herself. But as we evolved and began to understand the world around us more, we began to manipulate it and learn how to use plants and rocks and other things we found in our natural environment. And we would learn how to use these things in all sorts of different ways, from picking up our first club and hitting our kid over the head with it, to picking up a cannabis plant. And so when you think about what we would have used cannabis for in the first place, it certainly wouldn't have been for the recreational purposes that we know of it today. Wouldn't have been for the medical purposes that we know of today. At the time, we wouldn't have known anything about sickness. We weren't really that aware, I think, in a lot of ways. What we would likely have picked the cannabis plant up and used it for the first time was something soft to sleep on. What I have here is some hemp insulation from Nepal. And I love it for a bunch of different reasons. For one, when you think of insulation, you don't think of standing there and hugging it all day long. This here is, as well as somewhat coarse, it is very soft, and it is something that not only would be quite strong and durable to have as bedding, but the antibiotic, antifungal sort of benefits that come from the cannabis plant that we know to smoke and eat it would also have come from having, low THC kind of hemp, but nevertheless it has these various properties. So it would have resisted bugs and molds and things like that. The hemp plant would have made for very good bedding. Now, the plant itself, the stalk, is made up of two things. There's the outside fiber and the inside cork. It's kind of like this woody pith. They call it herds. It's important for a bunch of different reasons, but initially the herds would have been undesirable. And the first thing that we would have learned about the hemp plant for bedding is that cutting it or separating it from the roots and drying it in such a way that you would beat the stalk and sort of separate the cork from the soft fibrous material. With a little bit of effort, one could have made bedding not dissimilar to what this insulation is. And so I'm strongly of the opinion that this process, which became known as redding, separating the herd from the fiber, it comes up in a way quite importantly in the history of this plant. But I think that the first use would have been bedding. The second use would have been rope. Again, we're just learning how to transform our natural environment in different ways building up rocks and sticks for shelter, rudimentary clothing of animal skin, just very early on we would have learned not only how to make fiber of it, but the seed would have become very early on known to us, because I think we as a species in general for millions of years have gone around and experimented with ourselves in the natural environment and eaten just about everything, and if we see people die after doing it, or then we hopefully not do it again, but we've really experimented a lot. And so we would have learned that not only did the hemp plant produce a lot of fiber, but when it's grown in its natural environment, it would have been very heavily laden with seed. By weight, likely probably 20 to 25% would have been in full, formed, beautiful hemp seed oil, hemp seed full of oil. And so one of the first things that we would have done would have been to store it for the winter time, because even a squirrel knows that that's what you need to do if you're living in the winter time. But we would have learned how to press the oil, and we would have experimented with that oil, and it would have been likely one of the first oils that we got our hands on. It's really, on one hand, not that difficult to press, and it's flammable. In fact, the vegetable oil engines built by Diesel were Rudolph Diesel. Anyway,
Yep.
They were made to burn vegetable oils and stuff. And so, when you think of little lanterns in the corner with some little oil in it burning, or all the various old uses we would have had for oil would have come into play. Now, I talked about squirreling away for the winter. Well, we would have done that as much as possible. Saving food for times of scarcity was critical, because I believe through ice ages, through the millions of years, that one of the reasons that we were able to survive was because we were one of the species that thought about the winter and stored for it and prepared for it in all sorts of different ways, and collecting seeds and nuts and drying out berries, or whatever else you could do would have been critical. And the communities that would have done better through those times of scarcity, I believe, were ones that had vast amounts of hemp seed available to eat. And they could have lasted for several years. Certainly they deteriorate over time, but if properly stored, hemp seed could last for even up to 10 years. If you've got a really bad ice age going on, it may be the only food that would remain viable and give you the essential fatty acids and amino acids, the stuff that you need. In fact, hemp seed is about the only food that I know of that you could live off of entirely. And if that's all you had was a couple of buckets of hemp seed, and you just ate a few of them a day, you wouldn't need that much other food to just keep going. And I'm quite convinced that there were many times back in far prehistory where hemp seed would have proven itself over and over to us. And I believe that's one of the reasons why we have endocannabinoid system that's so closely related to the chemical structures in the cannabis plant, because I'm firmly convinced that not only did we eat the seed, but we wouldn't have been separating the bud from the seed like we might do today. We would have been throwing the whole damn plant in the food that we were eating. And as we learned to cook, as we learned to throw things directly on the fire, other uses of cannabis would have become more apparent. We would have refined, everything from how to hot box to how to make, bang, cooking it in milk. And so by the time, we started to work and live in communities of not just hundreds of people, but thousands of people, having good sources of protein and food became really important, because there's only so many wild animals in the area available. And not only was the seed valuable, but the fiber as well, and in particular for rope, because really good rope is not just important for building houses, but it's really important for warfare. At least it was till 100 years ago. And in some ways, our species has been very warlike. It's only now we're learning to cooperate. And that was why hemp was made illegal and fought over for the most part, was because it's such a valuable commodity. I've really soaked up my time very quickly. The lecture today is on the history of hemp. The past couple of centuries of history is somewhat more documented. I'll leave these up at the front if you guys want to come check them out. I have a yearbook here from 1913, the Department of Agriculture from the United States, talking about hemp and its various uses. Again, pre-prohibition. There's some excellent pictures of some big hemp plants and other useful information in there. I also have this other book here, published in, I believe, 1893, The Reign of Law, about the Kentucky hemp fields. And there's one fantastic picture in here. I'm going to get everyone that's in the room to at least check out. I don't know how well you can get in on that. But the history of this plant and its different uses is fascinating, and it's unfortunate that corporations saw to it to almost eliminate it from the marketplace, because it really has so many benefits to farmers, to the environment. It's a shame what's happened, but it's a great pleasure to watch it come back. This year, one of my projects is I'm collecting Jack Hare stock. We're going to build a bench in honor of Jack Hare using Jack Hare, the cannabis plant. I have a book here, Building with Hemp. One of the other earlier uses I didn't get into was mixing hemp in with the lime and earlier forms of concrete and building material at times, and pottery. But now there's a big resurgence on hempcrete. There's buildings popping up all over the UK. There's actually one in the United States now. There's one on Salt Spring Island too. And yeah, Ontario's doing it. So we're getting into hempcrete. We're going to be, actually, I have my shit together. We're going to open up a cannabis stock recycling depot up island and get people to just drop off their stock in a bin at the end of my driveway and turn it into building materials. So that's a big project that I have coming on this year that's I'm really quite excited about. There's lots of other things happening with hemp outside of our field. You can read about the hemp car in our new newspaper. It's just out today. Otherwise, I apologize for screwing up today and putting half the lecture. Yeah, I'll do that at the 420, which is coming on. Thanks everybody for coming out and sharing with me. I didn't talk about the ancient use of cannabis as paper. Our friend Kristen, who we're helping go through school, she's not actually taking a class this semester, a bit of a break. She took an ethnobotany class last semester. It was a wonderful course. And one of the projects was to take a plant from the area that people are growing and turn it into something useful. So Kristen took some of the stock from Mountain Mint strain that we sell at the Cannabis Buyers Club and blended it up, put it on a silk screen. You can read how to do it in our newspaper, the Cannabis Digest, but I thought I'd bring some paper and show you, in essence, how easy it is even to make cannabis paper. And this is what the Chinese started making, like 4,000 years ago, started writing on it and all that stuff.
Does that require like bleaching at all?
Oh,
like
I can't imagine it using it. You know what? I haven't even read the paper. Thanks for embarrassing me.
No,
it's all good. No, I've just been so busy putting conventions and stuff. It's in my paper. If it isn't, then we'll have to bugger.
I'm sure it probably
But
doesn't.
I'm pretty sure not.
It comes out beigey. Naturally.
It looks pretty white.
Close to
Oh, that's why you're asking, because it looks white. I would be honestly shocked to find out Kristen used bleach.
Yes.
That would be close to its natural color.
Yeah.
It is close to natural color. I used to get hemp paper to print on.
Yeah.
The old stuff was kind of like newsprint. You can see the particles in it, where they refined it down to just like your bond paper for photocopiers. It was beautiful.
And it gets submerged into water. I would imagine a lot of the chlorophyll would get taken out into the water, so you'd have this green sludge kind of water,
Right.
and then the fiber would come out.
Yeah,
the fiber would be colorless.
The wire, yeah.
It's
the
fiber
wire.
and
More
herd
so.
that's in there. And if you look at like the inside
That's right,
of
the
the
herd's
stock,
still in here, yeah.
It's pretty pale white.
Mhm.
Green. Yeah.
But yeah, if you come to 420, you can grab paper that night. Cool. Okay, thanks guys. I'm glad I remembered the hemp paper.